it may be one of the last large pieces of land to go into the forest preserve, and how it's very significant to the communities, and it's going to make a large impact, and how it's important to classify these lands right and to make proper management plans and decisions.
Finch Paper Company sold the land to the Nature Conservancy, and they sold 69,000 acres. And the Nature Conservancy sold 21,185 acres to the state and plans to purchase the rest of the land in the future. Our recommendation was to classify the Essex chain of lakes and the former Finch lands as a wild forest with a strict unit management plan, and the idea was to manage the land as a compromise between wild forest and wilderness.
Well, I think that most people, whenever we tell them that we want wild forest with more with restrictions, they automatically think that it's going to be wilderness, and they're like, well, there's all these roads here, and there's it's been used and manipulated by man for a long time, and they think that just because we classify something, it's automatically going to assume its position as wild forest or wilderness, and that's not really the case. It has to evolve that way, but we have to set it aside for it to be able to do that. So I think that's probably the hardest thing, is on justifying it on solely ecological things, is people only see what's there now. They don't see the potential that it could have.
We came up with the plan together as the three of us, and then we just split our presentation and written plan up into 3 separate sections. We prohibit motor vehicle use in certain areas of the landscape, but we allow motor vehicle access in order to access the northern section and access the water bodies. And then we prohibit all other motor vehicle access in order to protect the landscape from degradation.
It had already been used previously by a logging company, so it had the potential to withstand a lot of use, which it already had demonstrated before.
State land in the forest preserve can be classified as 7 different options, and the options range in how the lands are managed, and it ranges from high intensive use, which includes hamlets and industrial uses, to wilderness, which prohibits all motor vehicle use, mountain bikes, and so it's the most strict management option.
There are numerous towns that may be affected. We're anticipating them to be affected by this purchase, and so it's really important to take all of the factors into account and make sure that we make the right decision. Because this is the first time that these lands are going to be open to the public. So it's very important to the townspeople to have access. That was one of their main concerns, was if they're going to have access. And so that was one of our main priorities, to have access, but also by not allowing motorboats on the lakes were another one of the ecological asset that we wanted to protect the most. So that was the most important. And also with tourism, that's one of the main industries that helps keep these towns going and helps keep them alive.
This experience has allowed us to step outside of the classroom and get some one-on-one information from local citizens, government stakeholders, local business people, environmental organizations, and we've interviewed them in order to get their opinion on this land classification and what role they play in the park, and their contributions have helped inform our decision towards how we think this land should be classified.
The townspeople, it's really important to them to keep these lands and the waters in pristine condition that they're already in. They appreciate the lands, and it's their backyard. They want to keep it as vibrant and healthy as they can. And they know that if the lands are to be degraded, then it's not going to bring in tourism.
We put our basically heart and soul into this thing, and to really try and appease the majority of the stakeholders that are involved. But I would hope that our plan just doesn't, get buried under a stack of papers, and that it can be used as a model.
I think that although some people may not fully agree with the decisions that we've made and our perspective on how to protect the park, Everyone has been very encouraging and happy about us getting involved in the park and learning about it.
Everybody that we talked to was very excited that young people were even in the park, let alone had an interest in preserving the park, and I think that kind of gave them hope that once the decisions are out of their control, it's not just going to be forgotten about, and that there's still a lot of pride in the area.
We took a class on ethics and culture, and it focused on a lot of the perspectives on both the Adirondack Park and the issues within the park, and it was really interesting to see how things like community ethics and virtue ethics would come into play.
We took home a lot of skills on how to address a real-life situation and create a balance between the environment and people, and we got to see that it's not just black and white answers, and I definitely think that I can take a lot away with me from this experience into a profession one day.
I'm more than happy that I did this semester. I definitely got a lot out of it, both from an academic standpoint and just from figuring out what I really want to do in the future.